August 13, 1945. 750 miles from home, over the skies of Korea, First Lieutenant Oscar Perdomo banks his P-47N Thunderbolt. Below him, 5 Japanese fighters break formation. Outnumbered, low on experience, and with 0 kills, he dives. 8.50 caliber machine guns roar. Enemy planes erupt in fire. In less than 6 minutes, Perdomo will shoot down 5 aircraft, empty his guns, and become the last American ace in a single day, all while the war above is unknowingly hours from ending. On the morning of August 13, 1945, at 11:23, First Lieutenant Oscar Perdomo banked his P-47N Thunderbolt sharply over Kyo, Korea. Far below, 5 Japanese fighters broke formation, 8,000 feet beneath him. At 26 years old, with 9 missions flown and no confirmed kills, Perdomo was about to change that in just 4 minutes. Over 50 Japanese planes had taken to the skies to meet 38 American Thunderbolts approaching what would later become Seoul. The Americans were heavily outnumbered, 750 miles from home, unaware that the war they expected to continue for another year was in fact hours from ending. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had already been bombed, and Emperor Hirohito was deliberating surrender, yet the air battle over Korea raged on. Perdomo lined up on the 3 stragglers of the enemy formation. His P-47N, dubbed Lil May's meat chopper after his infant son Kenneth back home, surged forward under his command. 8.50 caliber machine guns roared as he closed the distance. For weeks, the 57th Fighter Group had flown repeated missions from their tiny base on Ishima, escorting bombers and strafing targets that often offered no resistance. The Japanese had been holding back their fighters, saving them for an expected invasion, but today they were wrong. Mission 50735 had launched 53 Thunderbolts at dawn. Mechanical issues and navigation errors had reduced that to 38 by the time they neared Korea, where radar now reported heavy enemy activity. Nakajima K-84 Franks, K-43 Oscars, and even a couple of outdated Yokosuka K-5Y trainers filled the skies. Perdomo's first target, a trailing K-84, erupted into smoke and spiraled downward, his first confirmed kill. Before he could savor it, the second fighter came into view. Speed, firepower, and precision did their work. The plane broke apart mid-air, a fiery wreck tumbling toward the Korean countryside. 2 kills in less than a minute. A third Japanese pilot attempted to flee, diving away from the carnage. Perdomo let him go, knowing he had larger priorities, locating his squadron in the chaotic sky. At 800 feet, he spotted 2 antiquated biplanes, targets by law of engagement. Diving at over 400 miles per hour, he struck the nearest K-5Y, watching it ignite and crash. His third kill was complete. But the battle was far from over. 4 K-84s waited in ambush above the clouds. Sun behind them, speed in their favor, they intended to overwhelm him. Perdomo, instead of fleeing, turned toward the attack, forcing the Japanese to miscalculate. Rolling his Thunderbolt inverted and climbing, he used the maneuver to shift the advantage. The final trailing K-84 never saw him coming, hit with a fusillade of .50 caliber rounds and exploded. 4 kills. Perdomo had become an ace in a single engagement in under 5 minutes. The remaining enemy scattered. With ammunition critically low, Perdomo began the cautious climb to rejoin his squadron, navigating a sky now filled with smoke, debris, and the frantic movements of both American and Japanese aircraft. The mission was not over, but Oscar Perdomo had cemented his place in the annals of air combat history. The distinctive glint of propeller blades caught the morning sun as Perdomo spotted familiar shapes in the sky, friendly Thunderbolts. He banked toward them, only to see the chaos they were engaged in. One American fighter was pinned in the tail of a K-84, the Japanese plane refusing to break off. The pilot below jinked and twisted to shake his pursuer, while a wingman attempted to intervene, though angles and timing made effective support nearly impossible. Perdomo pushed his P-47N to full throttle, diving toward the engagement. With perhaps 20 seconds of ammunition left, every round would have to count. Approaching from above and behind, the same tactic that had earned him earlier kills, he targeted the K-84, which was entirely focused on its prey. At nearly 400 miles per hour, Perdomo's Thunderbolt closed the distance.
Tracers streaked across the sky, striking the enemy fuselage. Smoke poured from the engine, but then, abruptly, his guns fell silent. 3,000 rounds, 8 machine guns, emptied in less than 6 minutes of relentless combat. The K-84 remained airborne, albeit damaged. Its pilot finally realized a new threat had appeared above, and he pivoted toward Perdomo. Alone, outnumbered, and empty-handed, the rational choice would have been to retreat, dive for the deck, exploit the Thunderbolt's speed, and live to fight another day. But Perdomo did the unthinkable. He turned toward the enemy, charging head-on in a calculated bluff. The Japanese pilot, seeing what appeared to be an armed opponent, flinched and veered off, abandoning his attack. Perdomo maintained the illusion of offense, keeping the enemy defensive long enough for reinforcements to arrive. A second P-47N appeared from the clouds, lining up the decisive shot. The K-84, still fixated on Perdomo, never noticed. 8.50 caliber guns opened fire, tearing the fighter apart. Wings, fuselage, and engines separated, a column of burning debris scattering across the Korean sky. 5 confirmed kills. Perdomo had become an ace in a single day, the last American pilot in history to achieve this feat in one engagement. Even with this triumph, the danger wasn't over. He was still hundreds of miles from home, low on fuel, and the sky remained hostile. The return flight over the East China Sea demanded absolute precision. Any deviation could prove fatal. Gradually, the scattered formation regrouped over the Korean coastline, battered but intact. Pilots checked fuel, counted surviving aircraft, and verified positions. 20 Japanese planes had fallen. The 57th Fighter Group lost none. The Thunderbolts began the long trek back to Ishima, skimming at 12,000 feet to balance safety and fuel efficiency. Pilots monitored instruments quietly, each aware of the ocean stretching endlessly below. The mission had pushed the P-47N's range to its absolute limit. Any further, and lives would have been lost. As Ishima emerged on the horizon, the first Thunderbolts began landing on the coral runway. Perdomo's touchdown marked the end of an 8-hour and 18-minute ordeal. Crew chiefs immediately checked for combat damage and carbon residue, confirming the intensity of the morning's action. Pilots recounted events to intelligence officers, matching claims and cross-referencing observations. Perdomo alone accounted for 5 enemy aircraft, 4 fighters, and a biplane trainer. Gun camera footage would later validate every claim. August 13, 1945 had reshaped the air war over Korea. The Japanese had finally committed their aircraft, and the 57th Fighter Group had met them head-on, emerging victorious and altering the course of a war that, unbeknownst to them, was only days from ending. August 13, 1945 marked one of the last major aerial battles of World War II. The 57th Fighter Group destroyed 20 Japanese aircraft without losing a single pilot, a remarkable and decisive engagement that would later earn the unit a Presidential Unit Citation. Unbeknownst to most on Ishima, the war was already coming to an end. Emperor Hirohito had decided to surrender. The invasion that planners had feared would never take place, sparing millions of lives. Oscar Perdomo had achieved what few pilots ever did: 5 confirmed kills in a single day. Gun camera footage arrived that evening, capturing every moment. The first 4 kills, K-84 fighters and an errant biplane trainer, were clearly his. The 5th required debate. His guns had emptied before the final enemy aircraft was destroyed, yet his skillful pursuit had set up the lethal strike. Without his courage and initiative, the Japanese fighter might have destroyed an American Thunderbolt or escaped entirely. Military procedure officially credited the kill to another pilot, but all agreed it was Perdomo's action that made it possible.
He had become an ace in a single day, joining a select group of fewer than 50 American pilots to ever do so. The following morning, August 14th, the war truly ended. Pilots prepared for another mission, unaware of the surrender announcement. Then the radio crackled. Japan had capitulated. Combat missions ceased, and Perdomo's historic achievement would remain untouched. For his heroism, Perdomo received the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest award for valor in the U.S. Army, accompanied by an oak leaf cluster, and later the Presidential Unit Citation for the 57th Fighter Group. The son of Mexican immigrants from East Los Angeles, the man who had once painted his infant son on the nose of Lil May's meat chopper, was now one of the most decorated pilots in American history. Life continued after the war. The 57th transitioned to occupation duties, and Perdomo remained in the Air Force, adapting to jets as technology evolved. In 1950, the Korean War called him back to duty, flying F-84 Thunderjets and F-86 Sabres. His skills saved lives in training missions, including a dramatic dead-stick landing with a student during a fuel leak in 1955. He retired as a major in 1958, having served 2 wars and flown countless missions. Yet even a hero's life carries loss. Perdomo's son, Chris Mitchell Perdomo, followed in his father's footsteps as a helicopter gunner in Vietnam and was tragically killed in 1970. The grief was profound, and Oscar Perdomo passed away on March 2, 1976, at the age of 56. His ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean, returning him to the skies he had once dominated. Perdomo's legacy endures. His P-47N Thunderbolt, painted to replicate Lil May's meat chopper, appears at air shows, inspiring new generations. His name is etched on the United States Air Force Memorial, and his papers are preserved at the San Diego Air and Space Museum. The story of the last American ace in a day, 5 kills in 6 minutes, an unarmed chase, and ultimate triumph, remains unmatched, preserved by history, film, and memory. August 13, 1945. 38 American Thunderbolts against more than 50 Japanese fighters over Korea. One pilot, 750 miles from home, 5 kills, empty guns, and an aircraft named for his son. Oscar Perdomo earned his place in history, a testament to courage, skill, and the extraordinary human spirit.